Paul said something about Erkan would have prepared and he'd have had a whole, you know, I did the preparation for this in June, May, June, this known be known, and it was a cathartic experience for me delivering it in June in London. And since then I delivered it in Essex in July, and I haven't delivered it, I've thought about it much until I was like, oh, that's tomorrow. So yesterday I downloaded it and I went through it, and it kind of brought back a lot of this presentation. And one of the things I wanted to say is I rarely do a Know and Be Known about me. In fact, I don't. I've never done one. This was the first one that I've done that wasn't about the community. It wasn't about making a difference to you guys or contributing. It was more about outwardly making an impact, as opposed to this is my story, or this is how my last year has been. So today I want you to kind of maybe, whatever you think you know about me, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, is just park it all, because for me this was a side of me that I haven't shared. So you may find out something new. So I want to caution you, whether, I mean, Paul was very generous when he said, oh, Erkan will inspire us later. And I'm like, wow, people, I've trained you all to expect that. But also, I've been through some very challenging times, and this is what I'm going to be sharing with you, more of what's been going on. Now, I've retitled it. I don't think it had a title originally, Andrew, but I think when we spoke, I said Life by Design. I think that's what I said to you, and when I wrote this up, I thought, is that what we agreed or not? Because I thought I'd get here, you'll have a different title. So I've called it Life by Design, and I'm going to elaborate on that or reveal why this is by design, okay? All right, so this is not about BeCollaboration, and it's not about Jill, okay? It's about Erkan Ali, and his life, and his know and be known, okay?
And you made sure Jill didn't even come.
Yeah, so you can't even see this, no, but I will mention Jill a bit later, but really this is not about Jill, and it's not about BeCollaboration, but like all these things, they're all interwoven, aren't they? Our lives and what's important to us are interwoven, and everyone in this room will pick up the key elements of BeCollaboration there, but I'm not talking about that. So this is Erkan Ali. It's me as a baby. And I think we're going to do human being first today as a core value, and I did it at Hartford the other day. And when I wrote the vision and mission before all of this started to happen, I wrote it as it is, as you see it now, was how it was written. The only thing we added in all the 4 or 5 years where it's been now is this one core value: human being first. And you know, some of the things we've been talking about today in your masterclass, and we've all discussed at various levels. I've discussed with you guys individually, but also as a community, is what would our world be like if we really related to each other as human beings first, and then took it from there. You know, if we really got that connected, and if we really broke out of the hypnotic state or the culture of not enough time and scarcity and fear. If I really let go of the fear and worry of what Stuart might think of me, what could we achieve? You know, and for me, when I notice young children, and some of us, most of us probably have got children, had young children at one point. There's a way they are with each other that I think we got conditioned out of, and we talk about that in the Genius program. But I think you all know what I mean, however you call it. I was born July the 12th, 1968, 1:25 a.m. And when I originally designed this talk, I wasn't 50 yet, but now this is now November, so I've been 50 for a little while, and it's been interesting. Is everyone here? I'm not sure. Who's not fit? Who's not 50 yet? Yeah, it's an interesting time of life, and I imagine you've all had your experience of going through those barriers. So yeah, that's my brother, Ed. What do you notice? What did you notice, Terry? Because yeah. And the photo doesn't really do it justice. He was like blonde, like sand-coloured hair with blue eyes. And look at me. I look like a little young, I don't know, what, 70s rock kid or something. I don't know. You know, with those collars on. So my early days, I didn't belong. I knew that I didn't belong. You know, I knew that this wasn't my family when I grew up. And most of my life, I've never belonged. Now, you wouldn't know that about me, would you? You wouldn't think that. If Erkan walks in a room and he owns the room and he's confident and he's inspiring, but for me, I have to confront that I didn't belong for a long time. That's my sister. Notice anything about her? Yeah, beautiful, isn't she? People meet me with my sister and they go, "You two related?" I'm like, "Yes, my sister. That's my mum." All he knows about her. And that's my dad.
The beard is coming on nicely.
Yeah, it's gone there. Yeah. So I really did, you know, so when I was about 8 years old, I ran away from home. Because my dad used to pick on me because I was the oldest. And then I decided that this wasn't my family and I'm running away. And I ran away with the intention never to come back. And then it got dark, it got cold and hungry, and I came back. And you know what decision I made, Terry? I decided that these aren't really my family, but for now, they're okay. Until the real lot turn up. You know, my rich family or the really nice family or the family that doesn't embarrass you in front of your friends. You know, that family. They'll turn up and at some point it'll be okay. Right? See, my dad was, and I imagine if we all look at our relationship with our fathers, whatever those relationships were, they're very influential in one way or another. You know, my dad, that's our house in Turkey, and my dad puts his car in the house because he hasn't got a garage, so he built this ramp up and ramp down into the lounge. Into the lounge. So my dad was always one of those people that didn't do what everybody else did. No, it was always my dad did things that other people didn't do. So he was an entrepreneur, he started his own business. We used to go to Turkey by car in the 70s and early 80s. And the first time we did it, and now he did it before we did it as a family, a number of times. But the first time we did it as a family was 1979 in a Renault 12. Now, I've got to say, I think that's really impressive. And we went on holiday that year, Stuart. Right, in 1979 was when I was just becoming 11. So I was starting my secondary school when I got back from holiday. And we went on holiday for 2.5, 3 months. We drove through Germany, Austria, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Turkey, through Turkey, stops along the way, Cyprus. And by the time we got to Cyprus, we was in the village for a couple of weeks, I don't know what it was. I got so bored, I got a job. I got a job and I was working in a cafe, serving people Turkish coffees and teas and Coca-Cola and things like that. But what it done for me, that experience was incredible. I would assert that you wouldn't be here today if I hadn't had that experience at a level. You know, what it taught me is that we're all human beings. And what I noticed was, going through Bulgaria, people look slightly different, but they still have the same stuff. You go through Austria, or you go through Germany, and I just noticed how the same we are. And you drive through a border, and it wasn't that different. It got more different as you drove away to the next border. You know, like lights changed, road signs. But it didn't, it kind of looked more, it looked like we were more the same than we were not the same.
That's including Eastern Bloc countries as well.
Yeah, it wasn't that, because obviously as you went further east in Turkey and Cyprus, you kind of, it changed, it did change. If you went from England to Cyprus, there'd be a dramatic change. But when you're driving, the trees, the foliage, the weather, it was like a 4-day to Turkey. So one of my passions, and who knows this about me, that motor racing, fast cars, going on track is my thing, right? I love it. You can't tell me to go do it. You don't have to set me goals or targets. It's just a feature of my life. Now, anyone know where that is, other than the fact that
It says
Spa. Right, so that is going down into Eau Rouge in Spa-Francorchamps, which is in Belgium, sorry. And Spa is probably the most famous corner in motorsport. If you put it up there, it'd be in the top 3, 2. I can't think of anyone that would put anything above it, right? And the guy next to me in the seat, so that's me driving, and my instructor for the day is that guy. Anyone know who that is, other than people who've already seen this talk? So that is Chris Harris, and Chris Harris presents Top Gear. So he's a racing driver and he does lots of stuff around cars. So in life we have peak experiences. And that for me, when I see that picture, it brings back the excitement of that and knowing how amazing that is as an experience. For me, not, you know, you might not find that interesting, but we all have those peak experiences, defining moments. And I talked about going on track for a long time. I didn't get on track until I was over 40. So one of the things I want to really instill in you, no matter that we're over 50 or over 60 or maybe even a bit further than that, some of us, it's never too late to start something that is really important to you. You know, it's never too late because you can start. And you can start tomorrow. And starting tomorrow could be sending that first email and finding about how do I do this or where do I go to do that. It could start with the smallest thing, but once you set intention, it starts. And that guy there, over there, Graham Ewing, Graham and I were friends for quite a long time. I'm not going to say so much more about that. But I'd said to him when I met him, I knew he was doing track days, and I said, I want to go track days. He goes, we'll arrange that. But I want to go on track, I want to go on track. He goes, yeah, we'll do that. Long story short, we bought that yellow Megane and we shared it for about 4 years. And we had amazing adventures. So if you start telling people you want to do something you've always wanted to do, someone's going to say, I can make that happen. Yeah, I do it all the time. Come with me, I'll hold your hand. So which track is this?
It's going the wrong way.
It's going the wrong way. Nürburgring, yeah. So that's the Nürburgring, right? So does anyone really know anything about Nürburgring? What do you know about it?
It's long.
It is.
It's difficult.
It is difficult. It is probably the most challenging track on the planet. And I went to Spa the day after I did this. So this was really scary. Do you know who that is? Do you remember Quantum Leap? And in Quantum Leap, he'd wake up in someone's life, wouldn't he? In their body, in their life. And for me, the Nürburgring was that experience. I kind of felt like I woke up and I was on track, going down the track, scared as hell, having the most peak experience in my life, going, oh boy. Really, it really shook me up. It was incredible. I feel like I woke up that day. But I'm going to say to you why Nürburgring is so special, okay? So the ring, as they call it, is 13 miles long, right? Now, most tracks are probably 2 miles, maybe 2.5 miles round. Nürburgring, 13 miles, yeah? And legend has it there's over 73 bends and 80% of those bends are blind. So that means you're going full pelt into a situation that unless you've driven it quite, a lot, you don't really know whether that's going to go over and down, over and left, left, over and right. Hard turn, you don't know. If you've only been driven it a few times, you won't know that. So that's the kind of place it is. The ring is a public toll road. Have you any idea what that means? Public toll road means you can go on it with anything. People go around in trucks, people go around in, Porsche 911 GT3s, they go around in... So I came back from this experience.
Is it one way?
It should be. That's a very good question. It should be.
Because that would add squad time.
It does. Right. So the other thing with the I came back from the Nürburgring that weekend, and have you ever been and done something that's been so amazing for you that you're reeling? You're reeling, as in you're playing it back in your mind and you're experiencing it over and over. So I went out for a client meal with a client and his team, and the client says to me, "You look really happy with yourself." So I just got back from the Nürburgring. He goes, "Oh yeah, I know the Nürburgring." I went, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Mum and Dad have been there." I go, "No, I don't mean the historic town in Germany called Nürburgring. I mean the track." He goes, Yeah, the track." I said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean they've been there?" He goes, "Yeah, they were on a coach trip in Germany, and the driver decided to take them around in the bus around the Nürburgring, right?" Anyway, so he said, because when they were coming up to the bends, he was getting them to stand up and go to the other side of the bus so he could get around the bends a bit quicker. So the Nürburgring is a legendary place. There's about 6 to 8 foot of grass, and then there's Armco barrier. Now, the first track I showed you was Bedford Autodrome. Now, Bedford's great. You slide off the track and you go woo along the grass. Car comes to a little stop. You start it up if you've stalled it, and then you carry on. Maybe you'll nudge the tyre barrier a little bit. You just go dunk. Here, you come off at 80, 90, maybe a bit more, and you come off the track. Guess what you hit? You hit Armco. So the potential peril is horrendous, right? So it's a really dangerous place. People die there regularly. They die on the Nürburgring to have that experience. So this is not a place to take on lightly. Yeah. The other thing that happens at Nürburgring is accidents happen. And that was the day we were there, right? The other thing that happens is bikes and cars go on the track together. Yeah? Now that doesn't happen, I don't think, anywhere else in the world that I'm aware of. So 13 miles long, 70 odd bends, blind, on a lot of them, or 78 of the bends are blind. Right? All different levels of driver ability, etiquette, motorbikes, people in vans. They call it the green hell. The fastest road legal lap around, or the fastest road legal car that went round the Nürburgring was 6 minutes 45 seconds. That might not equate much, but can you imagine how long it takes?
20 miles an hour average.
Yeah, through, and there's a what do you call it? What's the from the highest point to the lowest point is really, I don't know how high it is, but it's really a lot. There's a lot of that and a lot of that, you know. So it's around the mountains and hills. So that's Alton Park, another legendary track, and that's me at Spa. What do you notice about it?
Not many people.
Yeah, it's probably during the light. That's behind the, yeah, so that's the track day. See, I love it. I love it so much that I actually take my family on driving holidays. So that's Tyler and Senna. We're going through France there. I've been all over the place driving. I'll take a week off, Paul, and go for a week just driving with a friend and go and explore. Let's take that road or that way. I don't know. Let's go left. Where does it take us? I really love it. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it so much that I take my daughters on car shows even if they don't want to go. Most of the time they enjoy it. My friends will go on birthday days out with me and enjoy the day. That's Goodwood Festival of Speed. You know? It's weaved into my life. My passion, and one of the things I love doing is in my life. It's a feature of my life. And I think you can tell that I really enjoy it. I get a lot from it. Okay? Now, motorsport is very dangerous. Or the peril, the potential peril in motorsport is dangerous. You know? And I don't know of many sports where actually when you get involved, you can actually put your life at risk. There are out there. You could argue where you've got a frame, you've got a harness, there's a lot, but the thing that you're dealing with when you're on track is your own personal experience of limitation, right? So that's Simon Rudd's car. Simon Rudd is a driver I've been coaching now for about 4 or 5 years, and that is him hitting Silverstone wall about 120 in the rain. And he said, I couldn't see anything, then I saw the wall. So sometimes you see what's coming and you can't do anything about it, it's going to happen. And at that point, you're a passenger. That's them fixing the car in the pit lane. Literally yanking it. They actually tied it against that lorry and then they were winching it away to straighten up the chassis in the pit lane to get him ready to go out again. That in motorsport's considered a good thing. So I want you to think about where in your life are you that unreasonable with producing the result? Do we just smash it into the wall and go, I can't do any more, walk away? Or do we go, we smashed it into the wall, we've got to get that car ready for track. We've got to get ourselves back on track, back to where we wanted to be. Okay? That's that car about 2 hours later.
Literally stitched together.
Literally. Terry, you have no idea. Let me ask you a question. would you want to go back on track in that car on a wet, rainy Silverstone?
Well, without that top of the wheel.
Yeah, I'd go out there without the wheel, yeah. So how reasonable are we about...
Only if I trusted my team.
Well, even if you trust them, there's still something to deal with, and we're still dealing with that incident today. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, luck would have it, the races were cancelled that day, the weather was too bad, so Simon didn't have to go out in there, but we were all worried about him going back out. We even had the BeCollaboration sticker on it. Not that that was an omen. So that's Simon Rudd. Okay, now Simon Rudd, he grew up as a karting champion, did single-seater, was in Volkswagen Cup when I met him. Yeah, back about 5 years ago. And really lovely guy. I love him to bits. He's really lovely. And, you know, he's also a world record breaker. So he's 24-hour distance world record. So they did that at Le Mans, and they went the furthest distance in 24 hours as a team. So he's a world record breaker, veteran racing driver. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm coaching him. Do you think I'm teaching him how to drive? Huh? I doubt it. No, you're right. You don't have to doubt it. I don't teach him how to drive. Right? When I started working with Simon, and this is more the know and be known element, really, I suppose, Simon was doing really badly. He was finishing around 19th, 21st out of a pack of 30, 35 cars at the Volkswagen Cup. And I said to his dad, Phil Rudd, I said, Phil, I think I can help Simon. Would he be open to it? He said, sure. He goes, you couldn't do much worse. Now, for me, 19th out of 34 people on track would be like, you know, I would be elated. For him, that was really not good. Not good. Not good results at all. So we started working together, and that season I started coaching him. From 19th, 21, I said, what would be a dream come true? So when I'm working with clients, I asked them, Ian, what would be a dream come true? And you know what he said? He said, finishing above 10th. Now, that's not necessarily a remark on my abilities, it was where he was at. 10th would have been a dream come true. All right? So I said, okay, let's work towards that. Let's see as far as you can go, and we'll get you, let's work towards 10th. He got to 10th within about 3 or 4 races, because there's about 8 races over the season and it's over. And every weekend there's 2 to 3 races, 20-minute sprints. So you haven't got long to make up if you fall behind. You understand what I mean? It's intense. Do you ever watch British Touring Car? No, probably not. But it's very intense and it's a very short race. Anyway, that's Simon Rudd at the end of the season, last race of the year on pole. So we didn't only meet his dream, we surpassed it. That race, he finished 2nd. Now, I think he could have won, but a strategic decision was don't fight for 1st, finish 2nd, which I think was probably the best thing to do. Because it was a major breakthrough just being at pole. And that's him getting his 2nd place. That day was awesome. So when we work with people, when we make a difference to their lives, don't we feel we've had a part of that journey? Isn't that really fulfilling? I mean, we all get paid or don't get paid, or we get paid more than we were worth, or less than we feel we're worth, but that all disappears. What you're left with is the experience. And I think quite often we forget the value of the experience of being part of something really important for you. Whatever that is for you. So I would say really stop and savour the successes, because we don't spend enough time there, I'd say. So there are his fans and sponsors. So that's Steve Richards from Elsfab, and that's some of his team. Now, one of the things Phil Rudd said to me, his dad, he said, if people think we want sponsors just to give us, the best sponsor is the one that gives you the money and disappears. He says, no. We want them. Not their money. But their money is important because it keeps us on the track. But what we want is them to be part of the experience, to share in the trials and tribulations, to share in the success and the failures, to know that there's people that care about what we're doing and they want to be part of it. You know? What we've got around Simon Rudd and now Tom Barley in that picture is people, a community of people that are interested and support the endeavour. You know, one of the things about BeCollaboration for me was always building a community to support Systemic Win, to support the geniuses, to support each other. Really important. Really important. We're not always the one in the driving seat, but you're nothing without everyone around you. You know, you're not. You can't get anywhere. And I've learnt a lot from motorsport. So much so that I'm going to announce something a bit later. So one day we had the Dark Lord visit us as well. Darth Vader turned up. And he took the trophy, and then I had to have a word with him. Cars go from the exotic. You know, we often, I think a lot of people don't know much about cars or not that involved. They think a great car is something like that. And they are. They're amazing. They are amazing. Right? They're amazing cars. But when it's your passion, that's my rally car, my Scooby. That's it going off to the mechanics because the engine's seized. Very sad day. Oh, my Scooby going on a truck. You know, it goes from the exotic to the everyday. You know, if you're into painting, not every painting is a Rembrandt, but if you've painted something, it's your Rembrandt. Look at your efforts with joy. Look at the things that are in your life with value. You know, whether you're into cooking or whether, you know, there's always, I think there's a real pitfall with comparison. You know, I get in that car, every time I get in it, I love driving it. I shouldn't be driving it. It's too old, it makes too much noise, it's too uneconomical. But every time I get in it, I just love it. I can't get rid of it. I'm not ready to let go. I also want you to think about projects. What do they look like at the beginning? They don't look amazing. I did this at the introduction to Engage the other week, and I said at the beginning things look like this. A few people in a room sharing some ideas. One telling it can't be done, the other one saying, yeah, we can do it like that, and then someone saying, yeah, we can make it. So that is a car business. If you notice, there was SOR my car on my shirt, and that's what we turned that garage into. So that was a car tuning, car sales, supercar, and all sorts of cars. So when we're into something, we can go from the very, very basics of that to all the way to the higher echelons of it. Everything from motorsport to Lamborghinis. Everything from Scoobies. All of it is wonderful if it's important to you. Now, we were in Volkswagen Cup. You notice that's not a Volkswagen, right? That is a Ginetta G55. That is a proper race car. So the Volkswagen Golfs are converted into race cars. They put a cage in them, and you know it's a road car. We're familiar with it. That is a GT class car. So what's the lesson? We stay at something long enough and we keep working at it. What happens? We get better at it. We improve. We up our game. We get into the next class, the next level. So if you think about the BeCollaboration, I said I wasn't going to talk about BeCollaboration, but our known beknowns, the genius slot, the master classes, the core values are us working with each other to improve our games. And the more we practice, guess what? The luckier we get. But do we do enough practice? Are we practicing in the right areas? So that's a GT car. They're now in brick car. And I want to give you an experience of what it's like in the cockpit of one of these cars. So this is Simon Rudd at Alton Park. goes on. So Volkswagen Cup. Sorry, what did you make of that? It's quite mesmerising. At first you think, oh, I have to watch this, and you're like, wow, that's actually quite interesting. So there's a lot going on there. There's a really lot going on. To get masterful at something looks easy, but I'm telling you, there's a lot going on. Now in Volkswagen Cup, they're doing 20-minute sprints. In endurance racing, it's a different ball game. They're doing driver change, refuels, and they are doing a 50-minute race, and then they do a second race, which is 2 hours. So you go to the toilet, you have some lunch, you talk to a mate, you come back, and they're still going around like that, at that pace. So what happens is, as we raise the bar in our own abilities, we're able to do things that he probably wouldn't have the maturity or the skills to drive like that at the level he was a few years prior. Yeah? So maturity brings a huge benefit to us. How do we use that maturity? How do we use that understanding? What are you doing now that 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago would have been really beyond you? And where can you take your game going forward? Because people can race cars well into their 50s, 60s, 70s. They're physically able to. You know, so what could we be doing that we're not doing that if we worked on it we could achieve? So this is a championship team, Team Hard. Okay? So I've got a bit of an announcement for you. Literally yesterday I spent 4 hours over there coaching the senior team. And Team Hard now, probably the biggest race team in England. We think probably the biggest race team in Europe already. Okay? Now, why am I sharing that? I didn't walk in to the track first day and I said, hey, can I coach your team? I built my relationship up slowly. I developed my credibility, doing something with the driver, doing something with various people. I built up a credibility that I could be involved with this at another level. Okay? So the announcement hasn't gone public yet, but I'm going to be announced as the team performance specialist very soon. Now for me, to be part of a British Touring, GT, Volkswagen Cup, Clio Cup, truck racing, go-kart racing team that wants to be the best team in the world, is something that really inspires me. So where could you take your game in terms of what you're doing that's really important to you? And I remember when Jill came to the London Classic Car Show, which I'm going to show, I think some of you did come, I can't remember who did and who didn't, but we were exhibiting at London Classic Car at the beginning of the year, and Jill said, is this your life now? Because I'd been away from BeColl a little bit. I said, no, this isn't my life. BeColl is my life. This is my passion. This is something I enjoy doing. My life's not about cars. It's just something I really enjoy doing. Can you distinguish between what you love doing and what your life's about? They may be the same. But making a difference to humanity is what my life's about. Cars are just my passion. So you can take your passions as far as you want to go. You can take what your life's about as far as you want to go. So we set up a company called SOR My Car. And so much so I parked my full-time efforts on BeCollaboration and my own income producing activities to put 18 months into SOR My Car. Okay, which is a car sales service. The plan was to become a national brand in car selling services. So you got a nice car, you want it sold, we sell it for you, give you your money, we make something out of it. That was the plan. Okay, I created probably about 50 videos, all interviews, car related, did all this around up until about February, March. Okay, I even did podcasts with racing drivers. We had a podcast called Start Your Next Adventure. We did a number of those. Did trackside interviews, event interviews. So what I learned during that period was I set up a video sound studio, I set up podcasts off the back of JOP as well, Journey of Possibility. I learned about lighting, I learned about microphones, mixing decks. Now no one gave me permission, Dave, to do it. I wanted to do it and I went and did it. So we can acquire skills because we choose to. And today is probably easier to do it today than any other time in history. YouTube, Google, yeah, downloads. There's loads of information out there. Anything you can't do, that you can't pay someone to do that you want to do, you can learn how to do it. There is really no excuse. And we produced, I don't know how many hours of content. Now, anyone know who that man is?
Yes.
Yes.
His name. He's
He lives in the Isle of Man.
Yeah, Nigel Mansell.
Yeah.
Nigel Mansell. Now I'll tell you why I'm showing you that. So the night before, that was the Sunday of the London Classic Car Show. Saturday night, I'm with Phil Rudd, Simon Rudd's dad, and they brought the car to the exhibition. They let people sit in the car. They did autographs. There was a partnership, a real collaboration. And he said, Phil Rudd says to me, "I'm so gutted." I said, "What's up?" He said, "I can't be here tomorrow, and Nigel Mansell's coming." I said to him, "Oh, right, okay." And he goes, "Well, Nigel Mansell's my lifelong hero. And I really wanted to meet him all my life. I've wanted to meet him." I said, "Oh, I'm so gutted for you. I'm going to see him tomorrow." Anyway, so I didn't know that at the time. But I said, "Okay, so if you met Nigel Mansell, your hero, what would you ask him?" He said in 1981, Nigel Mansell had a massive car accident and broke his neck. And when he woke up, they told him he'd never race again. Yeah? And some of you have had those kind of experiences, haven't you? And I said, "Okay, and then what's the question?" He says, "Well, I'd ask him, what was the first thing that went through your mind when you was told you won't race again?" Do you know what I did? Me and Matt Woods, we got the fluorescent tops, we weaved our way in. This was a private area that no one could go in where they were getting the car ready, and I walked up to him and I asked him that question. All right? And guess what his answer was? To carry on as usual. Man's laying in bed with a broken neck. First thought in his head is, "I'm going to carry on as usual." Look at Simon Rudd, hit a wall at 110. Broken neck. Now, that is not amazing. That is amazing in itself, but that year he won the World Championship. Nigel Mansell sold his house and took his wife, and they lived in a caravan for a period of time while he built his motor racing career. Do we have that much conviction for what we're passionate about? Or are we kind of reasonable? So for you to work out where you sit on that scale. So that was the team, SOR My Car team at the London Classic Car Show. So I also got to exhibit an international show. Something I'd never done before. Never done it before, did it. And I want to tell you now where we are with SOR My Car. It's now closed. All of that, and we failed. Who here's failed? More than once? 12, 25, 25, 25, 35, 45. So failure's a theme. Obviously there are no real failures because you learn, but it didn't feel like that at the time. So we literally closed down SOR My Car. It took 18 months of my life. And I thought, well, so what, in some respects. Now, this is a Jaguar X S-Type. This was the car I had when I met Jill Tiny and Beju Solanki back in the early days before it was called BeCollaboration. And I will say that none of you would be here if it were not for this car. Now, I love that car. I tuned it, upgraded it, did the suspension, did the brakes like every car I buy, and I loved driving it. But there was an issue with this car. It was poisoning me. It was making me ill. Now, I'd assert probably most of you here are Lone Ranger, independent coaches, consultants, yeah? And if you don't earn money, what happens? It's tough, right? I got ill for about 9 months. And my income fell down to the lowest it had been in probably ever in my life, this period. Prior to being a Lone Ranger coach, I used to run businesses. And the biggest business I had about 45 people. I'd take 4-week holidays, 5-week holidays, 2 weeks holidays, I'd be ill, doesn't matter because the business is still running. But when you're Lone Ranger, you feel very, very vulnerable, very exposed. And what I said to myself, I thought, it's time for me to build something. It's time for me to build something bigger than just me. And it was around this time I met Jill. And I was already talking to people about this idea of putting great people in a room and sharing ideas, what could we achieve. And then I met Jill, and then I met Beju, and I met some other people, and they got involved. So really, sometimes when things are really bad happen to us, it's a real opportunity. Maybe it's the universe going, "No, Erkan, not that way, that way." Maybe going off into SOR My Car for 18 months was the universe going, "No, Erkan, you've learned what there is to learn, now that way." And I'm going, "Okay, I got it now." Drove some amazing cars. But if you look at me, I started to change. Something after that period for me changed. And when I'd look at it, as the view from my bedroom window living in Hertford, probably the most iconic building in Hertford almost. That's my view. Every morning I'd get up and I'd look out the window, that's the first thing I'd see. And then I started to take pictures of myself and I started to notice there was a different look in my eye. Something had gone. What do you see? That one. That one got my attention. I noticed I was at home on my own. I noticed I had a frown on my face. I was either working on my laptop or I had the telly on. I don't know what I was doing. And I noticed I had this, I noticed I had a frown and I held it and I took a picture. And I saw that face and I went, uh-oh boy, you're in trouble. I knew there was something going on in me. Something that I wasn't getting out of. It was like I was getting more and more deep into it. And things didn't look nicely and coloured. They didn't taste right. Nothing really inspired me. Now, all of this was going on, none of you would have known. Because I can turn up here and do this and go. But inside, something was dying in me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, probably. You're a smart bunch. And what I self-diagnosed, people say, I'll go to the doctor. I'm not going to the doctor. I don't need to go to the doctor. But I diagnosed that actually I was going through depression. I'd hit a wall and I'd run out. I was depleted. There was nothing. I had nothing left. And the low point of that was Essex in June. Do you know when I came to Essex? Was you there? Yeah, that was there or thereabouts. Yeah, there or thereabouts, I was done. And on the way to Essex, I was talking to my wife because nothing was making a difference. And she said to me, darling, if you could think of one word, what describes how you feel right now? I said, I feel like a loser. I feel like a loser and I don't think anything's going to ever change. I couldn't see a way forward. I couldn't see any light, any hope. The world's screwed and I can't do anything about it. And I'd reached a point where it was just complete self-loathing and utter despair. I hated myself. I couldn't listen to myself. And that little word, loser, just kept on going round and round in my head. It was like one of those spirals going right down, Paul. So I looked up the word loser. A person or thing that loses or has lost something, especially a game or contents. A person who accepts defeat with good grace. Who here's a good loser? I've never been good at losing. I hated it. I hated it. And I went back and found this record that I used to listen to years ago, and it was by Annie DeFranco. And this is the lyrics. I'm losing my love of adventure. I'm losing all respect for me and myself tonight. I'm striding down the gravel driveway of desire, trying not to wake up my sleeping self-loathing. You can't sell me on your optimism tonight. Don't tell me it's going to be all right. You can't sell me on your optimism tonight. I don't think I'm strong enough to do this much longer. God, I wish I was stronger. I think Jill Bolte Taylor says, you know, like a balloon or the air. Do you remember that talk she did about the left? Like that was just gone. It was like all that was left for me was the wrapping of something that was inside. That's how I felt. And to be honest with you, I've not talked about this in ages. I haven't. It's coming back. So my triggers, you say, I think we talked about something earlier on about, it wasn't about my life. It wasn't like I haven't got a great life. It wasn't that I wanted more money, although my money had been impacted investing in a long-term project that didn't work off, and I lost money at it. But it wasn't about poor me, it was this stuff. Around that time, Palestinian people were getting shot on borders by Israeli soldiers. What was eating away at me? Was it global injustice? It was wrenching me apart. Couldn't be with it. Couldn't be with it that it's like this. I can't stand by and watch this. Who remembers that? A little Syrian boy got found on the Turkish boat on the beach. Do you remember? And I was... So this is a quote from Mark Passio. I want you to listen to this, not in judgment, but just be open to what it's got to offer. So Mark Passio was a Satanist. He was part of the Satanist cult, part of the Satanist churches. If you don't know what that is, I would suggest go look into it, and with caution. I promise you, it's not a great place to look. But he said Satanism is about me, 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 all day, every day. If I could explain to you what Satanism really is, when you say the term, everybody's mind goes to the idea of the Christian devil, the devil with the horns and the pitchfork and the tail. This had little to zero to do with what I am calling ideological Satanism. Satanists chose that name because of the archetypal connection to the Christian adversary or opposer, which is what Satanism means in Hebrew. To the Christ consciousness, the higher mind, the connection to the higher self, the real saviour of the world, which is making that connection to this higher self and higher consciousness and really being aware what's going on within us and around us. Satanists chose that image because what they're really trying to do is keep people in low vibratory consciousness so they can ultimately be ruled and controlled and put into slavery and bondage. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And I knew there was this battle in me between evil and what looks like the right thing to do. You know, I knew that was what was going on for me. This wasn't about, can I get another client and can I pay my bills? This was, who am I going to be on this planet? Who am I going to be on this planet? And I was being pulled apart internally. I've put 20,000 hours, or probably more or less, who knows, into research. I'm more obsessed than probably anyone I know. Who here is obsessed? They get into something and they just... You said something about... yeah, I'm like that. I research and I research and I research and I research, and I've estimated 20,000 hours. And what am I looking at? Oh no, I'll turn it off. So these are the kind of things I research. And some of those things you'll go, yeah, well, I've heard of that. Drones, cancer, NASA, 5G. Some other things you may go, oh, I don't know what that means. Who here's heard of MK Ultra? Tavistock Institute? No? Tavistock Institute? MK Ultra? Mind control? No? AI? Transhumanization? Social engineering? Morgellons? Anyone here heard of Morgellons disease? No? Fabian Society? So I delve into places most people will never, ever, ever, ever look and never even heard of. Not because I'm morbid or because I want to know how bad things are. I think I've had an innate genius to want to know how things work. And for me, the Being Spy program has evolved quite a lot. And one of the things I've really made more of a feature for people is your innate genius. Practice it. Walk it like you walk your dog. Exercise it. Whatever that is for you, whether it's art, whether it's cooking, whether it's cars, whatever it is really take on exercising that genius. So mine is research. Research into whatever I'm interested in. how cars go faster, how to get your hi-fi to sound good. Doesn't matter. It's been obsessed since I was a little kid. So some would say I'm a conspiracy nut. But I'm not really a conspiracy nut. What I am is a researcher. But we're not trained to research and ask critical questions. We're trained to believe the mainstream narrative and make our decisions inside that very narrow, I'm going to say hyper narrow field. I think I showed a video a few years ago, hypernormalisation. I actually listened to BBC Radio yesterday, first time in maybe 2 or 3 years, Radio London. I managed around 15 minutes. It was a complete and utter insult to my intelligence. For me. Cars, one of my most passionate things. Look how many companies, how many brands, and how many car companies rule the global car market. So we're seeing in our lifetime a onward and further reduction of power into less and less and less and less and less and less hands. Take it from banking, big pharma, you name it, less and less, smaller and smaller amounts of people on this planet run the planet. Howard Zinn said they'll say we're disturbing the peace, but there is no peace. What really bothers them is that we are disturbing the war. You said something about there's less wars now, less chance of getting murdered. Since 9/11, 30 million Muslims have been murdered under industrial conditions. Now, I'm not a Muslim. I'm a human being. And that to me is abhorrent. We're still killing human beings at an industrial scale on this planet. Who here knows who Jordan Maxwell is? No? He's probably one of the most revered, respected researchers alive today. There's some that have come and gone, but he's still alive. He said, they do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, game shows, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained, so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. Netflix declared their biggest threat to their market is, do you know, recently? Do you know what they said? People falling asleep. Has anyone here got a Netflix account? Yeah, what happens? You put on a, what do they call it, a box set, one after the other after the other. And if it might not be you guys, I would doubt it would be. But a lot of people out there watching one after the other after the other after the other. Just 8 billionaires, and this is probably out of date already, own half the populations, half the world's own more wealth than half the human population on the planet. So these are the things that I'm researching and looking at and saying, this is what's going on. No one, and nobody really seems to care. Nobody really seems to care. Very, very, very few people. There's the fracking site very close to your home, not far. You know.
Earthquakes.
Yeah, you had them recently, didn't you?
Yeah, claiming not related.
Yeah, exactly.
They also claim it's not fracking.
Well, there you go. It could be something else, right? Who knows, right? Right?
It's a claim it's not fracking.
No, I understand. Why are we standing around trying to argue the point? The waters are rising. That's what I see. The waters are rising and we're too busy arguing over who's right and who's wrong and what should be done. And that's kind of where I ended up. Harriet Tubman. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. And now I got to this point. People, not a fan. I'd lost interest. There's no hope. I'd reached that level of my own cynicism, my own resignation, my own despair, my own low vibration. anger, frustration. And I realised, I look back now, I realised what I'd hit was terminal fear, scarcity and competition. For me, I declared that that was me really experiencing that world to the level that I don't want to go back to anymore. That was my journey. This was all around February, March to May, June. All this was happening. So I thought, okay, enough of that bullshit. What are we going to do? How am I going to turn this around? And really, I suppose, coming out of June, July, when I did this talk, having the 5.5 weeks holiday and coming back, I was still struggling when I got back in September. And then suddenly, October had shifted and back on track. It's like the fuel came back in. Yeah, the fuel's coming back in. So let's talk about love, connection, and abundance. So for me, what I'd noticed how important this community is for me. How important loyalty is. Like really. I am amazed that this guy's driven all the way, what did you say, 3 hours? Bristol to be here today to give us his masterclass. So for me, the breakthrough of you turning up was enough for me to give you the grace of really listening. And I may have sounded arrogant at the time. I didn't mean it like that. I meant I'm going to pay attention here. The universe has brought this man to my feet. Oh, I had to do a bit of driving as well. Hour and a half. But here we are in a room with a human being that's dedicated his life, last 15, probably all of it, right? Because you want to see a world that works. You want to see a world that makes, you want to contribute. I hear you want to contribute and make a difference. Who here doesn't want to do that? We all want to do that. Love. The willingness to forgive. Now, who here can forgive others? Are you so graceful with yourself? Yeah? Terry Piers? Yeah. Like, you know what? I've got to forgive myself for being disempowered, for feeling like a loser, for being angry. Friendship and camaraderie. One of the things, again, I'm coming back to this, not just here, but in a lot of areas of my life, I've realised how much investing in my relationships with people is paying me back now. So we could look at Surrey meeting and go, oh, I only 5 people turn up every month. But the value here is incredible. What Dave and Andrew are providing, and you guys who turn up, is incredible. So it doesn't matter if it's 10 or 5 or 300. Kind of, yeah, at a level, but no. Got my sense of humour back, sense of adventure. Be kind. Honour the things that make a difference. Honouring the things that make a difference. Not only in others, but in myself. It feels like you're bragging, or it feels like feels like if you can't take pride in what we're achieving today, how can we move forward? How can we move forward? How can we know the challenge, we know we want to make a bigger and a bigger impact, but that commitment shouldn't rob us of the triumph of what this is, of the difference we made today. You made a difference today, didn't you? Before you even got here. Who made a difference today before you even got here? I did. Let's triumph that. Celebrate that. And what about the power of belonging and being part of something? You know, there's a talk that Andrew does when he says when he found out at BeColl, he said, I'm home. Do you know how that makes me feel for someone to say that? Like he found home here, and I've heard people say it across the board. Just turn up at a BeColl meeting is home. I can just be me, I can just part my life. Yes, you all experience it at the level. And to thine own self be true. And what does it say in our poem? Can you disappoint another to be true to yourself? Yeah. There's probably a conversation that you know you need to have that would fit to thine own self be true. That you're holding back on, or you're not doing, or you're not having. It takes courage. I love this quote. Never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and passion against injustice and lying and greed. If people all over the world would do this, the world would change. If people would do this, it would change the earth. You said something very complimentary. You said Erkan has a knack of saying the things no one wants to say. Do you know, I've been doing it my whole life. I'm practiced. What I'm getting better at is saying it so people can hear it. That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
Isn't it? At whatever level they're at. So I'm still learning. Can you forgive me? I'm sure I've insulted you all at some point, so please forgive me. And then Osho said, nobody is superior, nobody is inferior, but nobody is equal either. People are simply unique, incomparable. You are you, I am I. Can you accept me for who I am? Can I accept you for who you are, Ian? Dave? Yeah, I can. You might not be what I want you to be, but you're you. That's all that really counts. I hope that this year to come, I hope that in this year to, can I just share something with you? One of the hardest things I find to do in life is two things. Writing on a board in front of people and reading. It's never stopped me. My handwriting is appalling, I can't spell, and I can barely read. It doesn't stop me. Do you know, years ago I wouldn't have never done this. I hope that in this year to come you make mistakes, because if you are making mistakes, then you are making new things, trying new things, learning, living, pushing yourself, changing your world. You're doing things you've never done before, and more importantly, you're doing something. How long have we got? Am I right for time?
You've got 10 minutes.
Great. I love this one as well. I've got a couple more quotes and I'll be right off. So the journey has to be based on passion. Put yourself in something you love to do. If you love what you do, you're able to dedicate yourself to overcome the obstacles. Our fears don't stop death, they stop life. And we've been highly conditioned for fear, highly conditioned to doubt, highly conditioned to stop rather than keep going. And this is one of my daughters, this is Senna. I have a community I'm accountable, but I'm also a father. Human being first, yes, but I'm also a dad. This is Tyler. What world am I going to leave for them? And your children and your children's children? On my watch, Stuart, on my watch, how am I going to leave this planet? How am I going to influence them? How am I going to equip them? What conversations am I going to leave them with? What attitudes? You know, what are they going to bring to the planet that I can nurture and support? That's 203. Do you know where that is? That's Landmark Forum. They did their Landmark Forum 2 summers ago. Not this summer, the summer before. And we still talk about their experience all the time. They're funny. They're funny. So this is a toilet in a shopping centre in Turkey. And the kids are saying to me, Dad, come and have a look. There's a toilet here for kids. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. They go, no, come and have a look. Look, literally, toilet for kids. Look at that. There, look, toilet for kids. That's my wife. Beautiful, isn't she? Do you know when you're in that state of self-pity, despair, you look at things that are beautiful and they look horrible to you? I nearly destroyed my marriage. Almost. That's Switzerland, not this summer, last summer. What's this? What do you think that is? That's coincidence. I'm sitting in Burger King because the girls want to go toilet. I'm waiting because we don't go Burger King or McDonald's. I'm sitting in there, this guy walked in dressed like that. I've gone, oi, he's looked at me, he's gone, ah! You see, look out for them, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. You'll be shocked at how easy things can happen or come your way. It doesn't have to take loads of work. It can happen like that. Like magically, you go, wow, I've got a client. Magically, oh, I've got this. Magically, that happened. It can be so easy. Take time out to be with the people, your friends, and those adventures. Really important. That's Mont Blanc with my friend Roberto. Okay, I guess this whole talk is about this one slide, really. That's Chris Sherlock and me. We go out in the mornings, we do about a 4-mile walk, 4 or 5 times a week now. We're getting reliable. And that's Oh, bloody hell, I forgot his name. Ah! Oh, he'll come to me. He's a former insurance broker, and he goes out every morning and he picks up litter. Do you know what I learnt from this man? Humility. Yes, there are big problems on the planet. Some of them are very uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. But you know what? I can pick up litter today, right now, right here. I can make a difference to Paul right now, right here. I can make a difference to Terry, Rihanna, Ian, Dave, Stuart, maybe Andrew if he behaves himself. God, I forgot his name. I've gone blank. It'll come to me. Take time with your friends. Who here's got friends they've known for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, whatever? Have that about those friends you haven't spoken to for a while. Pick up the phone. Say, hey George, how you doing? You got that $5 you owe me? Take time with your friends and don't lose your uniqueness. Yeah? That's at the UN. Don't lose your uniqueness for anybody. Honestly. Stand your ground, Terry Pears. Ian Hamilton. I challenge you to be you fully. And then I read Jill's book over and over and over and over again. You know what? It's quite a good book. It really, really did me wonders. Reminding myself of what we set up and what we're doing. You know, and I had someone the other day, one of the GT boys at Team Hard, say, because I gave him a book at the last race I was at, and he said, I read your book. He goes, it's amazing what you guys are doing. It's brilliant. He goes, oh, after I'd like to come to a meeting one day. And everyone was shocked and surprised. He said, you read? It doesn't have to be heavy. It can be really light. It can be really... I'm taking on that my life is about grace and lightness. Yes, I'm committed, but also I don't have to suffer along the way. I'm taking that on. And being accountable to this community is something that calls me to take that on. There's something bigger at stake than my own personal circumstances. You know, and then where those barbed wires hold us back, there can be the freedom as well. There can be the freedom, the access to that freedom. And this is a shot of one of our morning walks, and then suddenly one day you wake up and the sun's rising again. And you can hear the birds tweeting. And I'm breathing. I'm alive. I can feel the cold air on my face, and I've got a friend to walk with. And the sky's blue again. And there's a couple of chemtrails, because I wouldn't be without them. And I have to say, Jill and Kay during this period were incredible. They were absolutely incredible. And my wife and kids as well. They probably got the brunt of it. Because they always do, don't they? People closest to the epicentre. And Engage it came to life. We did the first introductions. Some of you were there, you know, and you know that what I announced earlier on with Team Hard, and there's loads of things in the pipeline coming. And I'm finding my mojo's coming back, my drive is coming back, my optimism's coming back. And I'm getting back into that flow. I want to leave you with this last piece. So this was oh, I switched this off, didn't I? Ah, you know what? I think earlier on the sound was coming out my laptop, but you'll get it. So this is a men's group. We met a couple of years ago, and we're sitting round a fire singing. And I want you to listen out for one little bit. Hopefully you'll get it.
I'm going to do something different. You carry on.
Can you hear that? Did you notice he said, sing with the intention of getting rid of the evil spirits? It was like a healing process. So, I'm nearly done, Dave. So Anthony Bourdain recently committed suicide, but this is something he said. He said, maybe that's enlightenment enough to know that there is no final resting place of the mind, no moment of smug clarity. Perhaps wisdom is realising how small I am and unwise and how far I have yet to go. Thank you very much, everyone.
That's so different from the first time.
Yeah, you saw it in London, didn't you?
Saw it in London.
Do we have questions, or have I overrun?
Yeah,
Well-
I'm going to take some tea orders.
Uh-huh.
Break.
Okay.
But while I'm doing that, let's have some questions.
Yeah, any questions? Thank you, everyone.
Do tea
I've
first.
got an observation rather than other meeting, which is if you were fighting that entire list of stuff you put on that, can you imagine why you ended up where you ended up?
No, absolutely. That was my journey. Can I have a mint tea again, please? Yeah.
I mean, all those things you were researching, was just adding one more ounce in the bucket that was
Tell me about it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what, I mean, it's like what Andrew was saying earlier, which we got from Beijing, that thing about micro goals. You can only manage the micro. And yeah, absolutely, maybe you're a genius to research things, but if what that then means is that it's yet another thing to be against or fight or...
Yeah.
No one human's got the energy for that.
No, I don't think. I think. Well, what I would say to that, what I would say to it, and it was part of the vision and mission of BeColl, is that we create enough consciousness as a species to. But majority, in my experience, majority of people don't know what's at stake. They're not aware of these things that are happening on our planet. So, for example, at the moment, I'd cite 5G as something we really have to be concerned about. And if you say 5G, well, I'm going to say, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's a very, very potentially hazardous technology for many reasons. It's intense radio and radiation, intense radiation, and it's a very different way of delivering 5G than, say, 4G or 3G. So the masts are far closer, the radiation is more intense, and people are already reporting illnesses, tumours, cancers, where they're testing it. And they're testing it without any pre-approval of the people that live in the areas they're testing it. So some major issues with it. There's been some court cases in England around it already, and other parts of the world. There's lots of research around it as well. Main thing you want to get is it's about 400 times more intense than 4G. It works at a completely different level.
The biggest challenge with it is that the safety standards that are being used only look at the thermal effects of the micro-radiation.
Just the heat.
Not the biological effects.
Yeah. It's really worrying. So I don't know what the balance of knowing what's going on with how do we make a difference, but if we don't know what's going on, I can't see from a level of causality how you can really address the issues. That's my view. But yeah, what I would say is, and this is my advice, go look and explore. So yeah, I haven't worked that one out yet. You know, there's lots of evidence around fracking. We shouldn't be doing it on any level, and yet here we are in England, people, you know, our country, our leaders, our government is authorising fracking. And it's horrendous. It's done a lot of damage in other parts of the world. So, but you don't hear about that on BBC News, pretty much.
You hear about people getting arrested for it.
Oh yeah. You'll hear about the crazy activists that got locked up, who got freed since then.
Who
But
then got free because the
yeah.
sentence was ridiculous. and
Yeah, 18 months for, anyway. So yeah, I don't want to go down that road because there's loads of that stuff. But yeah, any other questions? No? We done? Paul?
It's to do with, so this is potentially a challenge to work on, which is, it's the thing about quantity and quality. So yes, it's like, how do you know that the research you're doing is high quality research, opposed to just doing a lot of research?
Yeah, I'd say stay away from mainstream stuff. It's probably a good place to start, and then work it out. It's not easy. There's no real. I can't give you like this is it because I've been asked this loads of times. But what I've found is the more research I've done, the more I find there's some people that are more credible than others, and ultimately research, like being an explorer, you've got to come to your own conclusions. So to me, use your own innate wisdom. High pressure fracking under our feet, releasing gases, just doesn't make sense to me at that level, right? And us doing it at an industrial scale in our countryside and on our planet, I've already seen the evidence in other places of what it does in terms of water pollution, what it does to the waterbed, what it does to soil, and it's horrendous. It is horrendous. So there's loads of what you could call, I think there's two types of evidence. Evidence you can look at yourself and go, I can see that damage, and evidence that you've got to go, is that credible for me or not? And I think if your benchmark is mainstream, giving you authority that something's credible or not, you're already screwed. So you've got to throw it all out and start from scratch. And look at say fracking, and you've got a government that's giving licenses to fracking companies to frack, and then look at elsewhere in the world where there's been fracking, and then ask yourself, why would our government give permission for companies to drill and high pressure frack? And the amount of water that's required to frack is horrendous, and that water afterwards is pretty much useless. So I think a level of, I don't like the word common sense, but a level of sensibility with personal experience and any other research you want to relate to. And I think if you boil it down to the basics, is for me, we don't need to do it. For example, we just don't need to be fracking. We don't need 5G. So what is the compelling argument for it? Who's arguing for it? And generally it's the corporations and the governments. I wouldn't see any of you would say, oh yeah, no, you can frack in my back garden, I don't mind. None of us want it there. And you won't want a 5G mast near your house, you wouldn't want it. So I think the mix of the personal and, if you like, empirical. And ultimately, you've got to make your own mind up.
So I suppose you could say that science has been the process of research that has transformed our world, transformed our technology, and that's. Sorry.
No, I would go on. Carry on, Paul. Carry on. Finish what you said.
What the really serious scientists have done is they do all that testing, and they so then also tested by their peers, and the level of technology that we're just used to is, well, I mean, we are godlike compared. I mean, with 200 years ago, what human beings can do now is completely godlike.
Yeah, I mean,
and that is the process of science.
Well, yes.
Are we done? Time.
We need to wind up.
That's one for later, maybe.
It's the science research. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
We've accelerated our use of technology massively in our lifetime. Now, that's the important point. It's in our lifetime. I.e., we don't know the long-term effects.
Yeah, I mean,
science can't answer that.
No, we probably won't know, will we? I suppose not our generation.
I'm using science as a research process, not. I mean.
No, I want to address this because I think it's really important. This, if you don't mind, Dave, 2 minutes, right? Yeah. This is. I just want to. This is what I want to say about science. I think there is a concern for me about science and how we rely on science. Well, science says X, Y, Z, right? But a lot of science is funded by corporations. A lot of science is funded by investment interests, and they can almost prove anything they want to prove for their own gain.
Having studied the philosophy of science, pure science never finds an answer.
No. And it always checks itself. It's like, right now we see it like this. Tomorrow we may see it differently. It may not see it.
Yeah, right now this is what we know. Yes, exactly.
Right now,
Yeah.
with what we know, this
Yeah.
is how we are.
Yeah.
And then we go, oh, but in the map, that's how things are, and for the next 50, 100 or whatever years, that's how we live our life.
Yeah.
Meantime, science has moved on, but we still worship that.
And also, what I've noticed over the years of research is how evidence one is concluded by who, for what end, and how then it's used. So if you look at the whole, just look into intelligence testing and how the, the 11 plus exams were set up. It was a complete and utter fraud, but it was all done on the back of science. Intelligence testing of twins and how that was used in education. It's one of the first things I learned in sociology at 18, 19 years old that completely floored me, and it's the basis of our education system, based on a fraud.
The 11 plus was supposed to sort out the useful ones.
Yeah.
I got through it.
You got through it. There you go. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you very much. Come with you. Thank you.
It will take maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
3 minutes.
Wander around.